I am Brad Keelor. She is Kristin Sample Lord. Next up on Director's Cut, find out, I don't know if it's everything, but maybe a lot of things that she's learned about loans. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keelor. I'm the director of the Geo-Institute, and that is why we call this show Director's Cut. Every single week, until I get fired, I sit down with a different GI member who has stories to tell about themselves. Some of them are personal, some are professional, and every last one of them is fun. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, after you watch this interview today, you should head over to geoinstitute.org. And while you are there, you will find out so many things. Maybe a plethora. It might be enough to be a plethora. One of those things is that we have about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and or geologists, and that we are part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. If you like what you see today, and I always, dear viewers, give you a 100% guarantee that you will. You should click like, subscribe, get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. Now, our guest for this week, coming to us from the metropolitan Philadelphia area, where she is an associate professor at Villanova University. My sworn enemy, by the way, because I went to St. Joe's for undergrad, so hasn't been so good lately, but at one point it was a big deal. We welcome in Kristin Sample Lord. Kristin, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Brad.
We are going to have a great time today. I think so anyway. It feels like we are. We have 10 questions for you, the same way that we have everybody else, and 2 of them are the same ones that we ask everybody else. We start with one of those. Describe your job in 45 seconds.
Thanks. So I'm an associate professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Villanova. I teach geotechnical and geoenvironmental courses at both the undergraduate and graduate level. I work closely with graduate students and other faculty on research. I have some administrative responsibilities as part of my role as the assistant department chair, and I serve in a range of roles for professional committees and organizations. So I would say the amount of time I spend on each of those parts of my job in a given day just totally depends on the day, which is also why my job is really fun, because it's completely different. One day I'm teaching, one day I'm planning a conference. So it's a little bit of everything.
It warms my heart that you included the professional societies, because we're past like 125 episodes of Director's Cut, and I'm not sure a single person has included that in their job description off the top. They always wait until we talk about ASCE, which, while that is fine, I'm happy that you count it as part of your day-to-day activities. We will, of course, talk more about all of those things a little bit later on in the interview. There are fun questions on Director's Cut too, and we're going to jump right into those. What is the best and worst thing about having a hyphenated name?
Well, I feel that my name actually is pretty perfect for someone in geotech. It's a special kind of hyphenated name because my maiden name was Sample, and as someone pursuing a career in geotech, I thought, like, well, man, I can't ever change this name. It's too ironic for someone who spends all day with soil samples. And then I met my husband and was like, except, and so now I am the Sample Lord. And if I don't invent some sort of sampling equipment by the end of my career, I probably will have failed because, like, I already have this branded name. So that's the best part of my particular hyphenated name. But the worst part is that I didn't realize how many systems apparently can't handle a hyphen. So that's the DMV having issues with my license, trying to book airline tickets, and it won't let me put a hyphen in, or hotels. So whenever I check into hotels or dinner reservations, it usually starts with, oh, it's under Sample Lord. Oh, you can't find it? Well, check Sample, check Lord, check any iteration of those. And that's kind of annoying because I had no idea, like, in this day and age, so many systems couldn't handle a hyphen in a name.
So What kind of problems does that cause? Because I hit adulthood right before September 11th, and things were a lot more easygoing before that. And as a result, some places I was Brad, some places I was Bradley, some places had my middle initial. The first time I go to get on a plane after September 11th, I got flagged because my legal name was different than what was on my United frequent flyer account. What's the biggest problem you've ever had because of this?
So I'm actually surprised because all the time when I fly now, my license has one thing, the airline ticket usually just has like sample Lord smushed together. None of it matches. And I've actually never got called out because of it. So I'm actually surprised I don't have more issues. It hasn't been an issue. Maybe it's just you. But yeah.
Well, and it's modern times now. They can scan stuff. In 2002, I feel like it was like that was about as good as it got, the compare and contrast.
Yeah.
Wow, so that's a lot of work. Now, the other thing I think Sample Lord would be excellent for, you're probably not old enough to remember the text-based video games of the 1980s and maybe even early 1990s. A text-based video game based on geotechnical engineering called The Sample Lord would be incredible. And I hope that some viewer is watching this now and will go code this thing today because we need this to happen.
Yeah. Someone reach out to me. Let's get it going. I got the name. You can bring the ideas.
This has Victoria Bennett written all over it. Maybe I will suggest it to her. The third question is always the research question. When we were talking before the interview, I loved this description. A lot of your research, you said, focuses on two extremes. One, stopping flow, and two, encouraging flow. Tell everybody what that means.
So I work in a few different research areas, but at the end of the day, they all relate to flow and transport through porous media, so usually soil. But as you just alluded to, some of my projects are, for example, research on clay barriers for containment, like landfills and impoundments, where the whole goal is to stop flow as much as possible. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I do a lot of work now in green stormwater infrastructure, like rain gardens and bioswales. And there, usually the whole goal is to encourage flow and infiltration into the soil as much as possible. So I pretty much just bounce between meetings where I have to keep flipping a switch and then I jump, 9 or 10 orders of magnitude in hydraulic conductivity. But at the end of the day, the physics is kind of all the same. And all of those projects, they involve a lot of laboratory research paired with some field research too. So in all those projects, we're also usually trying to find ways to do lab testing that better represents field conditions, but still in a way it's practical to be done by someone other than like the PhD student who developed the equipment. And so there are a lot of synergies, even though the goals are completely opposite in those types of research projects, but it's really fun.
So how much of your work then, especially on the modeling and the testing fronts, do you think your techniques are borrowed from other communities? And the one incident that I have in particular that I'm thinking of are the Icelandic volcanic eruptions in 2010. And a lot of the modeling that was used to see where the ash plumes were going to go started getting picked up by other environmental subdisciplines. So how much do you guys borrow from other fields, do you think?
Yeah, I do mostly experimental work, but I feel like the one that we borrow a lot from without realizing it until we're like, oh, they've already done it, is soil scientists. There's so many times where we think we've sort of done something new, and then the soil scientists have been doing that forever, So I think that's probably a lot of crossover there. And then in the green infrastructure, some of those methods are different than I've been used to because they're more water resources approaches and field testing. But I think probably soil scientists are the most that I unintentionally steal from, and then try to give credit when I realize that I've stolen from them.
Good answer. Good answer. This question was not in your original 10, and it should have been, because when I was doing the research for the interview, I stumbled across this and it didn't make the cut for some reason. But now here it is. Kristin, tell us the most unique job you've ever had.
So I think this is unique just because it's so different than what most of the Geo-Institute members probably do for their main jobs. I was an aerobics instructor. Well, the correct term is group fitness instructor, but I was an aerobics instructor part-time for like 15 years, all the way from undergrad while I was working in consulting and through grad school, a little bit when I started tenure track here. There's even a few Geo-Institute members who may have been participants in those classes. And I even had a YouTube channel at one point. It's technically still out there gaining views.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad my students don't find it, right? So, well, maybe I should stop.
Yeah, I was gonna say that party's over about now.
Yeah. And I guess I say it's unique because it's different from what I do, because like yelling and sweating to music with a room full of other sweaty people in spandex is pretty far from typical engineering work. But actually, it turns out that bossing people around and keeping them entertained for an hour straight translates really well to teaching and even some committee meetings. So I do think that those skills did translate to my current job now. It's just a very different application.
You can use those in any walk of life, I think. How much do you feel like it helped you to do something completely different? I feel like, when I was an undergrad, even, you would see the kids that worked at the library on campus or tutored or whatever. I worked at a flower shop off campus. It was so great to escape and do something different. Is that what it was like for you?
Oh, yeah, it kept me sane, especially through my PhD, because I would be trying to solve a problem I couldn't figure out. Then I'd go sweat and yell at people for an hour, come back, and you just have so much more clarity. And it really helped me, especially through like my PhD, I think, to have something completely different, to just have to stop and go be part of something else for a little bit.
So any exercise enthusiasts, fitness enthusiasts that we have out there, which really should be everybody can do something. Now you can go find Kristin's YouTube channel and maybe incorporate it into your daily routines. You got 2 job questions in a row, which is a rarity on Director's Cut that we make it that thematic. This is something I've never asked anybody, though, and you're the lucky person who got it. What is the most questionable thing you've ever said or done in a job interview?
Well, I mean, this might be a matter of opinion of whether it's questionable or awesome, but we'll say that some people might think it was questionable. I was interviewing for a geotechnical position, like entry-level staff engineer, and we were at the end of the day, and we're at the most important part of the interview, which is, of course, when you go to the bar afterward with the people who interviewed you, and you talk about other things. And that evolved quite quickly into me coming up with geotechnical testing themed dance moves and teaching it to my interviewees, and then us doing them for a few hours at the bar. So for example, the plastic limit, we were rolling it out, and the compaction hammer, you got to look at the lawnmower going, and the sieve shaker. So, I mean, I think we probably could have done something with this, like become a dance troupe or something. But anyways, they ended up just hiring me to do engineering work. And so I got the job, and it was probably the weirdest but most awesome job interview that I've been on.
Logical follow-up question here, especially based on the first half of this interview. Do any current students know about this?
No, actually, this will be new if they see this video. This will be, I'm sure the grad students especially are going to taunt me with this for sure.
And for all of our viewers, this is the magic of Director's Cut. This is why we're still doing this in the 4th year, because of moments like this that you'll treasure forever. And Kristin may have just earned herself a spot in the best of at the end of the year. We'll have to see. That's the other question that we ask everybody when they come on Director's Cut is, how did you first get involved with ASCE and GI?
I think for ASCE, typical way people get involved as an undergraduate student first, and you're sort of part of this thing, and but you don't know much about it. And then it was really later when I first became a faculty member. I started helping more with conferences. I got asked to chair a session. What's this about? Now I've chaired a session every year for many years, which I really enjoy, for geo-congress especially. But I've also gotten really involved. So that was maybe early 2000s student member, up till now. So I guess it's been over 20 years. I've really enjoyed getting more involved with the technical committees. So I'm part of the Geoenvironmental Engineering Technical Committee, where I'm the communications coordinator, and also I'm on the Geosynthetics Technical Committee. And I actually really like those parts of the conferences when we get a chance to meet or when we do something. I know we just put out a blue book, a new manual of practice for geoenvironmental. So it's been a very nice way to connect with people in the community that maybe I wouldn't have read their research paper or seen their presentation, but then we end up in a room together and now I know them and we realize there's synergies that I wouldn't have known about before.
So for our viewers, that was so many great plugs for ASCE and GI.
He didn't tell me to say it. He didn't tell me to say it.
In one little compact answer, it was great. We always tell people, if you want to be on a technical committee, here are the requirements. 1, you have to be interested, and 2, you have to be a sentient being. If you meet those 2 criteria, odds are really good that the technical committee will accept your application. You can, of course, do that at geo-institute.org. If you're a student watching this and you're not involved in ASCE or GI, please check with your faculty member or advisor on ways you can get involved on your campus. Odds are pretty good that you've got a chapter or a grad student organization. We would love to have you. So that was, well, I mean, we can just wrap it up here if you want and forget about these other 4 questions that we have at the end. But we never do that on Director's Cut because this is the home of hard-hitting journalism within ASCE and GI. And so we ask questions like this: toast, bagel, English muffin, or other?
Bagel, clearly. I think the harder decision is, do you want butter or cream cheese on your bagel? I mean,
but now, so you've lived in different parts of the country now. Do you feel like this is a geographic-based answer?
I think it's an amount of food-based answer. Like an English muffin is not that big, but a bagel can get me through before my stomach starts grumbling too much, a little bit longer, especially if I got some cream cheese on there. So I think it's more just that I'm hungry in the morning.
Now, what about, let's take the logical extension here, because everything on Director's Cut boils down to food, sports, and music, I think. So what is your opinion of the breakfast sandwich? Are you pro or con?
Well, I wasn't into breakfast sandwiches until I moved to the Philadelphia area, which I wasn't from before, and I had no idea what a Wawa was. I'm trying to figure out, like what? And then I had a Wawa breakfast sandwich. And that turned me. Like, now I'm a breakfast sandwich person because their breakfast sandwiches are so good.
It's a good answer, and everybody in the Philadelphia area is going nuts right now after your support of Wawa. I find, though, that they tend to go crazier if someone is anti-Wawa or maybe Wawa ambivalent. I think people have figured, don't think that you can be ambivalent to Wawa, but it is possible. You are part of the Center for Resilient Water Systems at VIllanova. What is something you have learned about stormwater since you've been a part of that center?
So I think what I've learned the most about is working with water resources engineers, to the extent that I do now, because I didn't do stormwater before I came here, but they're like, oh, flow through soil, like that would be helpful for green infrastructure. And I think the biggest thing has been learning how to speak different languages, because, the geotech, usually we're traditional USCS soil classification system. We have certain words we use to describe soil, and everybody on the water resources side, or at least in these groups, they speak USDA, and they use the word loam, which I don't think I'd ever said before in a professional context till I came here, and now I say it like 20 times a day. And I feel like it's just sort of the lazy word for like a mix of soil that could be anything. But I've grown to love the word loam now. So I think maybe that's the biggest thing, is that I go from one order of hydraulic connectivity to another, stopping flow, encouraging flow, speaking USDA, speaking USCS as I bounce around meetings. And I think that it's been fun to work with people who look at these projects in a very different way than traditional geotechs would, and learning to speak different languages and trying to come to a common ground in what we're trying to achieve.
I think you might be onto something there with loam, because when we bought our first house, I remember asking about the geology of the area, and the real estate agent dropping the term loam into his answer. And I remember thinking, whoa, this dude knows his geology. And now I'm kind of wondering if it was just a buzzword that they had taught the real estate agents to say so that we would feel more confident. I mean, I did throw him off when I asked about any micro faults in the area after that. And now I look back and I don't know what my expectations were there, but now the other follow-up question here is, you said that you had used the word loam for the first time in your professional life. Are you dropping this into casual conversation like a lot otherwise?
I might now, especially if I'm at the bar doing geotech themed dances. That would be like the perfect time to bring it.
Well, I think what you could do is you could speed up or slow down the moves to represent the porosity of the soil. How about that?
You know what? I don't do the aerobics anymore. I just need to start a side gig for geotech themed dances and just hold the YouTube channel every week. That can be my new side gig.
I'm not an expert. I haven't written a business plan on this yet. I feel like it's a pretty niche market.
I already have the name. I'm the sample lord. Like, this should
be
a slam dunk.
That is true.
Yeah.
Another question that you are fortunate to get, and I don't know why I did not ask John McCartney about this a few weeks ago when he was on Director's Cut. You're involved with the International Geosynthetics Society, IGS. What is the most valuable aspect of being involved with IGS? And I guess the overarching question there is, why get involved with an international society at all? You've got GI. Are we not enough for you?
Well, all right. I guess so the serious answer is that there's a lot of benefits. I mean, the people are great. There's a great mix of industry and academia, but also what I really like about being involved with IGS is they have a strong focus on education. And I feel like we hardly cover geosynthetics in most civil engineering undergraduate curriculums. It's like a real gap. And so I think being involved with IGS is a great opportunity to try to address that, work in little ways we can get a bit more geosynthetics into education. And we have some cool conferences coming up. But the other answer is that there's this strange history that is developed where Ben Lashinsky gets some sort of service role, and then when he moves on, somehow I get asked next, and I just keep following in his steps. So you'll notice that Ben right now is president of IGS, and I'm president-elect. So I kind of just asked Ben, what am I doing next for service? I can't tell if it's really kind or really evil of him, but I'll find out eventually. So that's the other reason, because Ben was involved, and he got me involved.
I don't know if this is a theorem so much, but we need to give this a name. It's got to be like the Lashinsky sample lord theorem or something like that.
Yeah, you'll notice most roles I have, look, who else might have been involved previously.
So another follow-up here is for younger people, especially whether they're student members or new professionals, how do you get involved in an international society? I mean, what was your experience like getting started with IGS?
Well, the IGS student membership is free. So, I mean, it's easy, sort of just go online and get signed up. And then usually I feel like it's at conferences. So there's a couple of geosynthetics conferences coming up that, students can go to and meet the people. And I think that's probably the easiest way to get involved with some of those international societies. I'm also have a role with the International Society of Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering, ISSMGE. On one of their technical committees. And that's, again, it's sort of starting in technical committee meetings like at GI. You meet people, they're on other committees, they tell you about them, and then before you know it, get involved in the international work as well.
And I often say to our members, you do not have to renounce your GI membership to be part of these other groups. In fact, it will probably enrich your career, and it enriches our membership as well, makes you a more valuable piece of the community. So definitely find those international societies and join up. And of course, we're a little partial to ISSMGE around here, but there are many, many other valuable ones as well. Our final question here. for this episode of Director's Cut. Of course, Mother's Day is right around the corner. For our viewers, if you did not know that, Mother's Day in the US and Canada is on Sunday this week. If you're in the UK or a lot of the other parts of the world, it's already happened. So just tune this out. Go get your cards and stuff now. For you, Kristin, in your opinion, what is the best part about Mother's Day, either as a mother or having a mother or both?
I have 2 daughters, and I think the best part is that on Mother's Day, I get to sleep in like a little bit. I get a little bit of extra sleep, and if that's what I get, then I am happy with that, because I just want to sleep a little bit more. So that's actually my favorite thing about Mother's Day.
And I think what's always good about that, too, because this happens on Father's Day as well, is that everybody makes a big deal about it. But when the kids are younger, the very act of making a big deal about it means that there is a big deal being made, and there's no real rest for anyone. So I don't know. Well, that was a succinct answer, but good. So bonus question here. You know, sometimes we do bonus questions on Director's Cut, but not a whole lot. What has been, I went to undergrad in Philadelphia. It's the second biggest university community in the United States. What has the Philadelphia experience been like for you at Villanova? I just feel like it's a little different than other cities because there are so many universities in such a small area. I know as a student what it meant. I don't know what it means as a faculty member. Do you feel like it's been a different experience for you than it would be being somewhere else?
Yes and no, because I did my undergrad in Boston. So,
and that's number one. So,
you know what? I think that's a great point about having so many universities, because there's, like, you know, people I see at conferences that I can just see a week later because they're 20 minutes from me, you know, and it does actually make having a network or, oh, you have this equipment, can we use that? It does make those types of collaborations a lot easier and more fruitful because we can just go visit each other easily, or our students can work together. So I think that's one really great advantage about being in an area like Philadelphia compared to somewhere more remote.
There you go. You made it through all 10 questions and the bonus question on this. We didn't even say it was a very special Mother's Day episode because it's a regular weekday Wednesday episode, but we did get the Mother's Day question in there. For all of our viewers, thanks for sticking with us till the end. We assume that means that you enjoyed what you saw today. And if that is the case, of course, click like, subscribe, get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel, which is frequently. So Kristin, thank you for doing this.
It was very fun.
And for all your thoughtful answers. And again, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And we will see you with another brand new episode of Director's Cut next week.